are just getting ready for our second installment of Making Comfort and Joy. So we're so excited. We're going to have Toni from TL Yarn Crafts join us here in a few minutes. So yeah, we'll just be getting you guys on and started, and we'll look for Toni. Let's see.
Can you hear us well enough? I think, should I prop that up just a little bit?
Yeah, that's right. We didn't.
Hold on. So sorry. There we go.
Maybe that's better.
Okay. Yeah, that should
we
be
should
better.
probably, I could probably use that.
Yep. Okay. All right, we're just going to wait for Toni.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are having a good week. It's nice to see you all.
We've had a lot of nice sun this week. Has been really nice. I don't even remember today. It was sunny today.
Yeah, it was sunny
We
today.
had some frost in the morning. So it's kind of starting to be.
Okay. Well, here we go.
Is it there? Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, gonna. There I go. A little too tall for my camera.
Yeah, I know. Same
Hey, friends.
How are you?
Good, good, good. Happy almost Friday. How are y'all?
Good. How's your weekend going?
Oh gosh, it's been really good. My husband's birthday is actually this weekend, so I kind of ran some errands today. Kind of been ripping and running, but otherwise just trying to finish everything up for the week so I can give him all of my attention so we can celebrate his birthday weekend.
Awesome. Nice.
Really
Awesome.
looking forward to that. How about y'all? How's your week been?
Good enough. Yes. Good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Are you gonna stay in or go out?
You know what? So my husband found this axe throwing place nearby. This is something I have never done before. This is a new experience for me.
I heard good stories.
I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think, you know, we've been kind of keeping an eye on the news and stuff, and we've been kind of waffling on whether or not we're actually going to do it, but that's kind of on the docket. But otherwise, everything else is just kind of inside where, like, I'm going to cook. I got him, he loves cheesecake, so I got him a cake from the Cheesecake Factory, a couple of presents I wrapped up tonight. So, you know, whatever we do, it'll definitely be special. I think he'll be pleasantly surprised at the things I've got planned. Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
So what's your year been like for, you know, making comfort, being happy? How do you waffle through all that?
Well, I am grateful that I think it's just my personality to be kind of this eternal optimist. Like,
Awesome.
throughout any kind of tricky situation, I'm always trying to find a reason to smile and to laugh and to bring the mood up. Like, I think we all need that, you know, just for our own mental health and everything. So this year, I definitely feel like I've kind of, you know, put my head down and focused on exploring all the things that I love and enjoy to do. Really indulging, I think, in some of my favorite types of things. Like, I'm going to be honest, I've done a lot of shopping in 2020. I think really just to make up for, you know, not doing a whole lot of travel, not seeing a whole lot of folks, like just trying to surround myself with the things that I really enjoy, and, just kind of indulging and basically being like, you know what, I saved X thousands of dollars on travel this year. I'm going to spend it on yarn, and I'm going to buy new jeans, and I think I need a new couch, just whatever comes to mind.
I'm going to be on it for a while this year.
Exactly. Like, if I'm going to watch Netflix for the next 8 months straight, I should be comfortable. That's just how I rationalize these things.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. Yeah. And today, we even had that conversation today. Melissa was like, you got to call me, like, you got to be my voice of reason. And I was like, no, I don't want to be.
No.
Then just
No.
do it.
I don't want anybody to talk me out of it. Like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You're going to do it anyway. So just feel good about it. That's
Right.
Yeah, that's been the majority of 2020. But otherwise, also, just trying to, better myself in general. So I think one of my crusades that started earlier this year was just drinking more water and like staying hydrated and like moisturized. I don't know. That's just something that I never really put a lot of effort into and intention into. And, just as you get older, there are things that your body needs, like water and, lotion on your hands. Things dry out. So, that's something that I focus on. And as innocuous as it seems and just kind of mundane, like, I honestly feel like I feel better being hydrated more often than not.
Yeah.
So, you know, just little things to be more intentional about, I think. Yeah.
Did you get any new kind of hobbies come in, or things that you thought you would really love that you don't love, and this you found them kind of loves?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've really explored in 2020 is just getting back into some of the personal things that I love about being a maker and being a crocheter specifically. I think in the last several years with trying to build my business up and really focusing on, you know, making sure I felt comfortable financially, like every piece of yarn I touched was for work. And this year I've really put a lot of effort into buying nicer handmade yarns and creating things just for myself. Like even the shawl I have on, I'll be completely honest, I released the pattern, but I made this for myself. Like I wanted a shawl that was lightweight, that used, you know, yarn in my favorite colors from Dyers that I love, and really just making it a more personal experience instead of making yarn such a business transaction, which honestly, until I, you know, was forced to sit myself down in 2020, I didn't even realize I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'm used to working. Like I'm used to being busy, and I'm used to, you know, putting 110% into this business because it's just me. And I think 2020 needed me to kind of take a step back and remind myself, like, I originally got into crocheting because it's something that I enjoy and that it was a hobby of mine, and kind of reintroducing myself into the really fun side and less of the business side of crocheting. I think that's been really therapeutic for me this year.
Awesome.
You know?
Yeah. Those kind of lessons too, that I feel like it's been so much of like every year through last year, it was like just productivity. Like it's all our goals in life are about like, I got to get this done, because when I get this done, I'm going to get here, and then I'm going to do like, these are my 5 and 10 year goals, and all things to like just push through life. And then someday, I'd love to someday get to Hawaii maybe, but I'm really working all the time now. And then this year you're kind of like, yeah, what was all that for?
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, I always talk about how I don't have time to do anything. Well, now I have all the time.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do with it? And I think I would like to say over the last several months that I really filled my time with things that, you know, nurture my spirit. Even though I haven't been able to see people like I like to, I have spent a whole lot more time on the phone, talking to people, FaceTiming, sending messages to folks that maybe I wouldn't have been communicating with on a regular basis. And that's been really gratifying, like really satisfying to just like sit on the phone with my best friend for 2 hours. Whereas before I'm like, yeah, I'm going to see her in like a month. So I don't feel the need to call her as often as this, you know, just those little things that it's like when you really stop and think about it, like a lot of our practices and a lot of the things that we do to connect with people have had to change this year. But instead of looking at it like a hindrance that I can't see people in person, I look at it as an opportunity to just be more creative with how I connect with people. And I think another result of that is I've gotten a lot more excited about giving gifts. So like sending things to my mom, sending things to my friends. Today I was out shopping for my husband, and me and one of my really good friends that lives here, one of the things that we love to do together is we'd go in Bath and Body Works and just sniff the candles for hours. Like on end, we're sniffing like, oh, this one's awful. Oh, too much vanilla. Oh, this one's super sweet. Like for hours we would do this, and we haven't been able to do that this year. You know, it just looks a little bit different. So I went into Bath and Body Works to pick up some stuff for my husband, and I started sniffing the candles. And I was like, I think Teresa would really like this one. So I just picked it up for no particular reason, and she lives nearby to where I was at. So I just kind of dropped it off. We spent about 5 minutes chatting on the porch, and it fills your cup to just do those kind of little things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that. Yeah. Really cool. That's really cool. And you said you've been, you love going out to craft markets.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. So my maker career started with markets. Okay. So essentially what happened is once I got back into crocheting, which was in my 20s, I was making a whole bunch of stuff for family, and they said in the nicest way possible, like, girl, I only have one head. I don't need this many hats. Love you to death. So, I took that as my cue. I was like, okay, I have to find some other outlet for this, because I knew I wasn't going to stop making, but I also knew that I lived in a very small apartment and there's no way I could stash all this stuff. So I started selling at markets, and this was probably, I think I did my first market in maybe 2014, 2015. So going to markets and being a vendor was always really exciting for me. And then when I stopped vending in 2018, I kind of missed that atmosphere. So I started to actually go to markets a lot more often. And there's just something really exciting about going to a place where you don't know what's going to be there, you know, and just walking all the booths and seeing what's different maybe from last year or what vendors you've never seen before. There was this lady that I always got really excited to see. She makes peanut brittle, which I was like, I never knew I could get excited about peanut brittle. But I mean, when you put peanuts and walnuts and cashews and like chocolate chips and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was like, yep, you'll see me next year. Don't you worry, I'll be back. Like just having those moments where you connect with a maker because like you're just so obsessed with their product. I was just talking to a friend of mine and I was like, how weird is it for me to be able to say like, I have a favorite ceramicist? You know, like there's this one girl that I see at markets, and like I bought 4 mugs from her, one for myself and one for each of my friends for Christmas this year. I'm like, every time I see your stuff, it just makes me happy. And every time you come out with a new design, I'm like, I need that. Send one my way. Like, you know, just it's really exciting, you know, to feel like you're supporting someone. And as a maker myself, as somebody who runs a handmade business, like I know the feeling being on the other side and having somebody appreciate my work, especially multiple times where they continue to come back. So I love being a customer on that side, not only receiving this product that they put so much time and energy and talent into, but also, you know, just knowing that I played a small part, you know, in their success and in their journey. You know, I love being part of that. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
Melissa from Woods and Wool wants to know, who is the ceramicist?
Oh, so I actually have some for stuff right behind me. I'll show it to you.
Yes, please.
So, yes. So I just went to the show this weekend. So the potter, let me grab this up. Oh, okay. Her stuff's so pretty. So it's called Bud and Bowl. Okay. Is her name. And she makes these beautiful mugs. Like, look at this.
Oh.
And I love the symmetry of it. Like, I think when it comes to handmade pottery, like a lot that you can love about it is kind of how handmade and kitschy it looks. And yes, I support all ceramicists, but I think my personal aesthetic is a little bit more modern and symmetrical. And I really love repeating designs like this. So I got a different one, if you guys will indulge me for a second, because I'm very proud of myself for these Friendsmas gifts.
Absolutely.
So that was the first one. So here's another.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really fun. And I got them, like, my 3 girlfriends all have very different personalities. And as I saw them, I'm like, this one is for Courtney. This one is for Lisa. This one is for Crystal. Like, so they're all very similar in that they come from the same person, but they all have kind of their own personality, which I'm really excited about. Like, you don't want it to be a competition, but I feel like I'm going to win Friendsmas this year. Like, feeling very confident. Yeah.
That's so fun. And we were talking about this the other day too with another making friend, that it's kind of felt like, and I don't know if it's justifying the spending this year or whatnot, right, but a lot of it is, but is being able to support all these, that being at a place that when you are in the beginning of this and you're like, I'm here, I'm trying to do something, and now being able to be on the other end of it, that you can now have the time that you're like, I get to indulge and get to support you and say how amazing your stuff is and make them into my making life and enjoy them in my, it's like threefold. I get to enjoy it, and you get to feel the confidence that you're doing an amazing job too.
Absolutely.
It's been really nice to be able to have that, to feel like you're giving in this year and also receiving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anybody who's run a handmade business or especially done craft shows, like, you've had that period when you felt really insecure about, you know, are people going to even like my stuff? Is my booth set up well? Like, is my stuff too similar to somebody else? Like, there's a lot of insecurity that comes with finally putting your product out there, because you can be in your own little world and be like, oh yeah, that was great. But if you don't feel that reinforcement from your audience, you know, it can be really challenging to keep up with it. So when I go to craft shows, like I really try to, you know, outside of, you know, just purchasing things, really try to be like really effusive. If I like something, I'm going to tell you and be like, keep doing that. Like, this is really nice, you know, because I think people need even that auditory reinforcement to be like, okay, you know what, this thing is going well, you know. And I remember earlier on in my maker career, like I'm the kind of person where everybody who walks up to my booth, like I'm looking at where does their eye go first? What do they grab for first? Are they trying things on? Are they looking at their friend and be like, oh, come over here? Like I'm looking for what are people responding to, so I know what to do more of, and also maybe what to do less of, you know? So yeah.
That awkwardness of feeling in a booth and being like me, do you like me? And the like so awkwardness that it you know, like, so it does,
There is
onto those moments that you're like, there was that person. So how important they are.
Yeah, it's exciting. I definitely remember being at like one of my first shows, and you know, before you have the confidence to speak up about your product or to like do that little sales pitch that you say 1,000 times in one day for every person that walks up, like before you have the confidence to do that, you're really just feeding off of people's body language and kind of whatever energy it is that they give you. But you know, I'm grateful that even early in my maker career, even outside of my customers, I had other people that I really respected in the maker community. So like other business owners, people who own stores, people who ran craft shows, who kind of were able to be mentors in a way and really talk me through like the business side. So they're like, if you want to grow, here are some things to do. Really fun, quick story. One of the moments early on that I will never forget, there's a woman here in Columbus named Olivera. I can never pronounce her last name, but she runs a shop called Wildcat. And it's a really fantastic consignment shop, all beautiful handmade. Like imagine your favorite craft market, but in a brick and mortar store. That's her store. And I remember very early in my maker career, I was doing a craft show. She walked up, kind of looked at my stuff. She didn't buy anything, but she's like, you need to raise your prices. And I was like, oh my God. Really? Like my stuff's good enough to charge more than $20? Like, you think so? Like, it's just something that had never crossed my mind. And without somebody that I respected and looked up to saying something like that, I probably would have never changed them. Because at that time I was having pretty decent sales, never really considered that my prices might have had something to do with it. But it was like just that kind of, and I mean, to her mind, it was probably just some offhand thing maybe that she'd say to anybody who vended with her. But that really stuck with me. And I feel like that was one of the just kind of pieces of advice that I took to heart. And I found that as I raised my prices, as I, you know, spent time investing in my booth, as I, you know, took the time to wear more than just a t-shirt and jeans to a craft market, like as I started to really take it seriously and take her advice to heart, I did start seeing a lot of really amazing growth in markets and in my business in general, you know. And it just was that kind of little seed that she planted that really kind of took it to the next level for me. I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget that.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
But being in that baby infancy when we first start and don't realize how much you can charge for product, you know, you just have no idea. And then the first time that someone tells you how much they would charge for something, you're like, oh yeah.
Or initially you just see sales coming in, and you're just like, okay, well, I've got to, or you know, I mean, we had those times at the shop a long time ago where, you know, things weren't going well for a very long period of time, and people would try to buy samples, or they would buy samples. They'd say, oh well, I'll buy this, and I would sell it to them, and just because it was, well, here's a little something that would come in. I need money. I need to pay the mortgage. Like, and only after time, I think sometimes do you have the confidence to be like, okay, well, no, I can't let that go because I need this sample to sell the other yarn coming through. Or so
I think that happens a lot, and it still happens. One of my really good friends, Chantel of Knititude, recently did a live stream where she kind of talked through how to properly price your samples. Like if you wanted to sell something you handmade. And I watched the entire live. Now I have an extremely short attention span. And as much as I love my friends, I rarely sit through anybody's live. And it's no disrespect to them. I just can't sit for too long. But I watched her entire live. I watched her talk through how much she would have to charge for a sweater. And she talked through material. She talked about overhead. She talked about paying yourself and having an hourly wage. She talked about, you know, retail versus wholesale. And she was like, at the end of the day, like this sweater that took me 15 to 20 hours to make, that's made from, you know, even if it's super bulky, you know, mostly acrylic yarn, like I'm still going to have to charge you X hundreds of dollars because my time is worth it. And it's important for me to make money off of the things that I've spent my time in. And I think for people who are kind of a little bit younger in their maker journey, they have trouble rationalizing charging someone, you know, $200, $300, $600 for a sweater because they're like, oh, I just need to sell sweaters. Like, right. I got to get these things out the door. I need to make money. But I think it's something that you really have to learn and really have to kind of let sink in as a value of yours, that I'm not going to undercut my experience. I'm not going to undercut my time. I'm not going to sacrifice all the effort I've put into this just to make sure the check clears. Like, you know, it's a balance. And I vividly remember being at that place where I was doing craft shows early, and I was like, you know, I just need to price this stuff to sell because selling things is what validates my time. And I think it took time and it took growing confidence, like you said, to be like, you know, but my time is actually worth more than this. And I'm honoring myself and my experience and my talent by not selling this to you because you're not going to give me what it's worth. And that, I mean, that takes some time. I mean, I've been in this since like 2013, and that's not a mindset I had early on. It took time to get there.
Right.
You know?
Right. It reminds, so one of my favorites is I had, so my previous career, when I left that, my two, who I'll always call my bosses, they came to the shop to kind of see what I was doing with my other part of the life. Yeah. And so they just were in awe by the samples that were on the shop. And they're like, did you knit these, or who knit these? And they're like, do you sell them? Like, oh, Denise would look great in that. And I was like, no, they just really are to help, you know, sell that. Maybe some days if we don't have the yarns, but no, we don't sell the samples. And then the two guys, the business heads, are just like, you should have a bunch of ladies knitting all the time, and then you could just like sell those. I was like,
no, because they'd still be like crazy more expensive than somebody even wants to spend on a regular basis. And, you know, I think there comes kind of like this, you know, critical mass moment where it's like, you know, no one is going to want to spend this much on this finished piece. And it gets to a point where it's like, you have to make for different reasons, or you have to make different products for different reasons. Like maybe selling handmade sweaters is not in the cards for you. You know, maybe selling fingering weight hand-dyed shawls is not in the cards. I think there are a lot of makers, like knitters and crocheters, who have a lot of really good success with selling, you know, things that you can make quickly, things made of, you know, more value yarns. And if you can find that balance, it definitely works. I think, you know, in the latter years of me doing craft shows, I was selling a hat for, oh gosh, probably like $60. I was selling a scarf for like $80. Some of my products were over $100, and they were still selling. Like they did well. And I think it was a matter of finding a product that works, being able to make it quickly, wholesaling my materials, and really doing everything I could to bring the cost down so that when I finally brought something to someone, like, it's not going to be the cheapest hat at the craft show, but it's going to be the best made. It's going to be on the nicest booth. It's going to be sold by the cheeriest person you've ever met. Like I started to craft an experience around it. And that's what I used to justify my prices. Like I didn't then have to explain to people like, oh, this took me an hour to make and I've been crocheting for 10 years. Like I didn't feel the need to justify it in that way. It was just like, you've walked into my booth. The prices are what they are. I do not haggle. One of my favorite lines was, my prices are firm. Because people would ask all the time, you know, and I think I used to take offense early on when people would ask like, will you sell me this hat for $20? Like I used to be real sensitive about it. But after a while I was like, you know what? I get it. Not everybody knows the etiquette of a craft market, or they might have been to a market where somebody was okay with that, you know, and that's okay. But I think that one little line, because it was never said with any malice, it was just, my prices are firm. So
yeah,
buy it or not, you know?
Yep.
Kind of put the ball in their court.
I like.
And I think like with like what we're like too with the making, the reason we love making sweaters or like all the time and getting to work with the beautiful things, like we want to do that part, and then we want to be like, I spent a bazillion hours on that, it's mine, it fits me, it, you know, like all those things are like, we don't do it to sell to then like let go of, because that's so hard to let go of. You know, you do hear some people like, who's gonna make this for someone, but it's gonna be me now. They're hard to let go because they're so pretty, and we do love the making process. So I think it's funny for the people on the outside of the making world. They're like, you should sell that, and you're like, no, the process is for me too.
And it's also like having that connection excuse me, to other makers while you are doing it and wearing it, that solidifies that relationship even further. Like I have this pair of socks that I wore all weekend last weekend, knit with yarn that Rachel from 6 and 7 dyed. Tracy Miller from Grocery Girls designed the pattern. So it's like, and I have like real relationships with each of those people, and so having that on my person, like they were a shop sample, but those colors have been retired. So it's like having that, I knit that, I spent time with them in my mind, and like, you know, it's just,
Cecily today I was wearing a pair of socks, and Cecily today was rubbing her face on my knit sock. And hey, Judy made these for me. She goes, she's so sweet. She loves yarn. You know, it's just
talk about validation. That's what I'm talking about.
You know, it's the extra cool things that make it just so much.
And that's like the layer of, those are just the layers of this community that just feel really good.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
That's why we're doing it. I could buy socks so cheaply somewhere
Definitely.
else.
Yeah, I mean, if it was just about saving money, like nobody would knit and crochet, because anything that you make is going to be more, these days, it's going to be more expensive than you can buy it in a store. And I love kind of being able to pick apart all the different things to love about being a crocheter, like buying tools, buying yarn, finding new designers, finding new yarn dyers, then actually making the yarn, seeing the colors transition, seeing how everything comes together. I've even come to really appreciate the finishing process, because seeing how, you know, maybe a sweater or a shawl looks before and after it's blocked, like there's a lot of gratification in that feeling. And then ultimately wearing it and being part of this larger community that can, like, I feel like only knitters and crocheters can truly appreciate all the work that you put into something. And that kind of reciprocal energy, I think, is really important to a lot of us. Like I'm so grateful to be part of the maker community, because there's some really warm, encouraging, and supportive and amazingly talented people here. So I totally get what you're saying as far as like just having the pattern and the yarn, and then essentially making something that makes you feel closer to these other people. Like that, it's such a big part of the process. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Someone was asking, are you self-taught? Or did you, or did someone special teach you?
Yes. So actually, I learned to crochet and really kind of got that initial spark from my mom. So my mom, who is by Gwen's Design here on Instagram, she's probably going to watch this, and she's like, you didn't say anything about me. So my mom taught me how to crochet when I was 13 years old. It was a while back. So we ended up spending like a really good summer. I was working on just one project. It was a granny square blanket, and she knits, crochets, sews. She does all the things. So we spent that summer that I learned how to crochet really bonding over this new talent that I had. And it was probably like a decade before I picked it up again, because eventually I was going into teenage years, and then I went into college, I got married, I moved, and just life was happening. So I eventually got back into crochet in my 20s. I graduated from grad school in 2010, and we were knee deep in a recession. I was in a brand new city, freshly married, away from my family. Like, a lot had changed in a very short period of time. And I just kind of needed something to do with myself, you know, something that felt familiar. So I eventually got back into crocheting. But what I'd learned from my mom when I was 13 was like crochet 101, like the basics. So thankfully by 2010, there were a lot of really amazing resources on YouTube. I got really into purchasing craft books. Like, that's a whole separate hobby that I even consider outside of just being a maker. I love finding and collecting knit and crochet books. So to a degree, I would say I'm self-taught in that I took an active role in learning new techniques, finding out about yarn. Like, a lot of people, you know, we were kind of talking about people early in their maker experience. When I was early in my maker experience, I didn't know there was yarn sold outside of Joann and Michael's. I had no idea. Like, I didn't realize there were local craft stores. I didn't realize that people had studios where they dyed yarn. You know, I didn't even realize that there were companies like Cascade or Barocco where I could find maybe nicer value yarns, but I had to go outside of what I knew to find those. So that kind of early learning experience, I think, was self-motivated, because once I really got into yarn and I started making things, I was like, you know, this yarn's okay, but I feel like there's probably something softer out there. Or this yarn's okay, but I was really looking for it in teal and they only have it in aqua, you know. So just finding a reason to stretch outside of my boundaries. And that's been one of the things I've enjoyed the most about being a maker, is just discovering things that are new to me, and just pushing myself. Like, I found this book, I think it's still downstairs, but have you ever heard of live loop cables?
No.
Me neither. So I was searching on Amazon. This is something I do on a regular basis. Oh, my husband is here, by the way. Also, he drops it in, he like trolls my lives, but his birthday's coming up, so I think he missed the very beginning, so I didn't give any of his presents away. But so one of the things that I love to do is I'll go on Amazon and I'll search just crochet in books, or I'll search knitting in books, just to see what's come out, because I don't know what's happening right now, but there's like a boom of brand new knit and crochet books happening. Like, I feel like they've come out of nowhere. So I found this book called Live Loop Cables. I wish I could remember the author right now, but if you search it, you'll find it. The book just is copyrighted for 2020. And it's this technique where you essentially couple traditional crochet with I-cord, and you like travel the I-cord up the crocheting to create 3D cables on the front of the work. Like, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. So this is something that I'm planning to teach myself over the holidays, and just continuing to be a student of crochet, learning new techniques. Like, really, like, I've really dug into Tunisian crochet. I want to learn everything about it, and like, that's what keeps it exciting and fresh for me. So I'll definitely say, like, finding books, learning new techniques, like, all of that is what's kind of, I would consider myself self-taught, because I really took the initiative to continue to grow and learn. Even as I'm designing and teaching on this side, like, I'm always learning and trying something new, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Have you been teaching, do you have, beyond your online tutorials, I mean, have you been teaching formal classes?
I did a few. I dipped my toe into it. So I did a couple classes for Stitches. So I'd never been to any of the Stitches events, but Stitches reached out and they're like, you know, we're doing Stitches at home. We're looking for teachers. Would you be interested? And I was like, sure, you know, why not? I'll try anything. I did the classes. They were great, but you know what? I think I know myself well enough that I don't think that is my strength. That's not necessarily my forte. Like, I can teach the class, but there's a lot more to teaching digitally, to teaching live, than just sharing the material.
Yeah, sure.
You really have to be in tune with all of the students. You have to, you know, take time to walk certain people through it if they're not getting it immediately. There's a lot of technology concerns that I was not prepared for. So I tried it. it was cool. I would definitely recommend it for anybody who's looking to get into teaching because, you know, when everything goes right, like the classes themselves were great. I got a lot of really good feedback about them. But it just takes a lot of effort and a whole lot of patience. And I don't know that long term I have the patience for it.
You are so kind of how you're saying no. I love it.
Like, I just don't think it's for me. I tried it though. I mean, it was cool. And I'm grateful. I'm really excited to see that some of my maker friends, like people that I know who are also designers or people who are authors, are teaching at these events, because I think learning that way is great for, you know, some people need that visual, you know, reinforcement, and they need to be able to ask questions in real time. So like one of my good friends who's a designer, her name is Danielle, I believe, she does crochet and a lot of Tunisian crochet and stuff. And she has some classes, I think at Stitches or maybe at Vogue. And I was really excited when I saw that she was doing classes because she doesn't have instruction anywhere else. Like, I don't believe she has a YouTube channel. She's done kind of a couple IGTV videos, but I think that's a really great place to, if you want to teach, kind of learn what your strengths are and learn if you have the aptitude for it, the patience for it, the ability to do it. So, you know, I definitely recommend it. It just wasn't a great fit for me, is all.
And I think that, I mean, I love your style and I love seeing what you do so well. And I think, and part of what I love about your style is that you know what your style is.
Yeah.
And you know what you do so well. And I think trying to do all of the things or be all of the things for all of the people, I think anyone who's been in business for themselves in any capacity has tried to do it at some point. You know, we've all tried to do it and say, well, you know, for me, I like when people like me.
Yeah.
I like people to not like me. And when someone says, you know, I just, you don't have this, or you don't have this, or what if you got this? It feels, why? I don't know, but like a personal, like, maybe I should, you know? And so, but being super, I love the way that you are so comfortable in being you, and that transcends into your style in general. And but it's not something that you just, I mean, it sounds like you've learned it over time.
Absolutely.
A long time.
It's been a process. Like, I'll be completely honest with you guys. When I was first starting out in my maker career, and I think a lot of people fall into this trap, like, you'll find maybe a few people who are doing really well, and you're like, okay, so that works, so I'm just going to do that. You know, and I'll be honest, I fell into that trap early on. I was making products that, you know, didn't necessarily represent me. I was, you know, even in my Instagram space, like I was, you know, maybe writing captions that weren't really in my voice, or I was designing products because I knew that they would sell, but they didn't really feel like, you know, something I was in love with. You know, early on, when you just don't know yourself, you don't know your style, you don't know what you're into, you don't know what your audience is looking for, you know, you just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what works. And I think what eventually happened is I got to the point where I'm like, okay, this feels more like I'm just trying to run a successful business, as opposed to I'm trying to get a foothold in this maker community and be part of it and have something new and fun and fresh. You know, so I think it eventually got to a point where I started to understand the products that I wanted to make, the people that I wanted to speak to, the communities and the circles that I wanted to run in, because like this maker community is so diverse, and there's all these different pockets and niches that it's like, I don't like to say there's like cliques or anything, but I think there are people who cluster around each other because they have like interests, like with anything else. And so once I got a feel for what I liked and who I was and what I wanted my business to look like, then I could become myself. Because like early on, you just don't know. You're trying your best and trying to figure it out. And I think it took kind of giving myself some grace to make those mistakes and to not know, but still try, that I eventually got around to like, oh, this is who Toni is. This is who TL Yarn Crafts is. Like, this is what my persona is in this space. And I eventually got there. And I think the thing that really helped me understand, like, okay, I've arrived at like my peak TL Yarn Craftsness is, I got reached out to by a company that wanted me to design something with this really awful yarn. I'm not going to say what it is because it's going to be real obvious. And before I knew myself, I was saying yes to everything. I was like, yes, I'll do this promotion. Yes, I'll make this design. Yes, I'll use this stuff that I don't really care about. And I told them, like, no, I don't feel like that's really a good fit for me. Like, I don't think this really represents my brand and speaks to my audience how I want to. And I remember after sending that email, I was like, who are you? Like, what? Like, you don't talk like that. But I think that was kind of my first step into saying, like, I have to say no to some things to leave myself open to say yes to things that are the right fit, you know, and it takes some time to get there is all. Yeah.
How long do you think that it did until you had that kind of epiphany of who you were?
So I was doing craft shows from 2013-ish to 2015 or 2018 or so. And I really kind of dug my heels into designing about 2017. So I'd say it was right about then. With craft shows, I think it's a lot different because you really have to focus on your audience and what they will buy, what they're into. Like, you can't get too jazzy when you're trying to make a whole collection of stuff to sell at a craft show. So when I really kind of dug my heels into designing and started doing more collaborations, like, that was right around when I was like, you know, there are certain companies or yarns or ideas that vibe with me, and then there are some that just don't, and that doesn't make them bad companies or bad products or anything. It's just not, it's just not me, you know? And I think that was it. So I would say, I don't know, I guess that'd be like 4 or 5 years into my business that I really got a feel for kind of who I was, what my style was, and what I wanted to represent in this space.
Yeah.
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 I mean, yeah, it took us, when we redefined, we took the time we were going to do a logo rebrand, and then just take time to go and answer all these questions of who you really were. You actually got to really define versus being like, we could do this and we could do this and we could do that, we could do that, you know, like, and then just finally, like, really, because then, yeah, it's just been really, and then it makes it even really fun to be like, this is my style specifically. And it's fun still appreciating at everyone's style, but just really honing in on what you are.
And we still have those conversations, you know, we'll talk about, like, okay, should we bring this yarn into the shop?
Well, I still, like the very first day when Melissa was like, so there's this mohair. And I'm like, I'm sorry. What? Remember the days when we have the pictures in the back when we were getting rid of all of the mohair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
But I definitely think there are a lot of trends that come and go in the maker community, you know, and it's funny. I think Melissa from Woods and Wool was in here. I'm not sure if she still is, but she recently did kind of a yes or no for trends in her story. She asked people to kind of like submit all these different trends that happen in the maker community. And she was like, pom-poms, yes or no? Are we still into temperature blankets? How do we feel about mohair? Like, and just kind of getting a gauge of really where people are on these trends. It was so interesting to see the responses. And one of them did ask about mohair, and it was like split right down the middle.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like mohair is having a moment right now, like mohair and really textured yarns. And I kind of feel like it happens every time the temperature drops, you know, it happens. But I think some folks are like, you know what, we did that last year. We did that 2 years ago. Like, let's find some other like really creative and interesting basis to work with. But, you know, I think mohair gets a bad rap. I still like it. I'm still a fan.
We just sent out a newsletter this afternoon with a lot of new the nuanced from Little Fox, which is the Surrey merino and silk. or alpaca, sorry, and then wobble gobble, which is like the hand painted speckles.
They're the tiniest speckles I've ever seen on mohair. It's
unbelievable. So,
I feel like it's so difficult to speckle mohair, period, because like the halo. I don't think I've seen this before.
Throwing it from like way far, like how is it?
She's getting real creative over there.
So yeah, but it was really funny of that. Like when I was not ready for that conversation, I couldn't take her serious for a while because I was like, I don't even understand what's happening right now.
I know. We
but,
thought,
and
how
then
could
hook,
we?
line, and sinker. You start seeing what people are doing with it, and you're like, oh, that is amazing.
And it helps too. I mean, for us, we're I think Columbus is maybe, are we 6 hours maybe from you? I mean, so even further north. So like we get, I mean, that warm or that cold weather will, you know, like we're in it for a long period of time. So, so that kind of, that's part of it.
You know, and I appreciate that. Like, I think, you know, one of the things that I appreciate about local yarn stores and like having a brick and mortar is the decisions you have to make on a daily basis about, you know, what your style and aesthetic is, and compare that to what's currently available, you know, what you want to go out of your way to stock up on. I've often considered if like owning a brick and mortar is in my future. I don't think it is, but I've thought about it, and just like all the work that goes into it, I applaud you, because I think you guys are one of those shops that people really look to and be like, you know, they've got their stuff together. Like your branding is on point. I've looked through like your online shop, and you really do tell a message with the types of products that you carry and with the items that you highlight. So, you know, I feel like that's especially tricky when you have an in-person shop, because just like selling at craft shows, like you want to sell the stuff that people are going to buy, but there's also this fine line where you want to stay true to yourself and like, you know, who you are once you've identified that. So kudos to you guys for sure.
And that was something too, like we are in an interesting spot where we were really saturated with yarn shops, which was interesting.
Really?
There was, like when I jumped on board with Melissa, there was 8 in the area. 8?
And I mean,
crazy.
there aren't that many people that live here at all. I'm not very good with numbers as far, but like, I mean, we're talking.
Traverse City is the biggest city, and it's not that big.
No, it's not big at all. So, yeah, I think, and you know, it's just like you know, having a moment. I think that there were people that were sent, you know, retirees that were sort of like, you know, I'll try this, I'll do this, and like owning a bricks and mortar shop was having a moment. I mean, just being able to do that, and I think the face, you know, I think it will be super interesting to see what happens with retail, not just yarn shops, but like retail in general. What will happen in the next year, 3 years, 5 years? I think it's totally different, but it's also, you know, we had like a come to Jesus moment in, I don't know, May maybe, where we were like, what are we going to do? Like, should we have a storefront still? You know, I mean, we've talked a lot, because there's so many facets of but especially after a global pandemic in which people cannot get out. It's like, it's like the romance that you feel about walking into a storefront. It like has heightened to a new level. Now, while we are still only allowing 3 people in the shop, but it's like, I don't think that you're going to ever be able to let that go.
It's even more, I think it's even more nostalgic because people pine for it even more than they have. And just having that store connection or having that real connection versus being like, well, they put up a good web page that's digital and it's just a factory line behind it. You know, like, it does feel like, you know, you get to have that, make it an actual physical experience for those people who are able to or who do want to come to keep that kind of nostalgic piece alive still.
Definitely. I think that's so important, like being able to give people a place to like physically walk into and know that this is a place that, you know, caters to and nourishes their hobby that they hold so dear. Like I have a yarn store here in town that I love to go to, and like every time I walk in there's something new. I know all of the people that work there, and I've only been once, since March. But that one time, I think I was in there for like 2 or 3 hours. I'm like, I miss this so much. And there is, like, even though it's only been a few months, like, it feels like we've been in this for an eternity. But it's been the better part of a year. But I think, understandably, a lot of us kind of took for granted those kinds of experiences because you could just do it anytime. And now that, we have to be a lot more choosy with where we spend our time outside of the house, like walking into a local yarn shop or a bookshop, even a coffee shop like that, it becomes an experience because we just can't do it as often anymore. Like the shops here in town, I try my best to go to them as often as I can just to support them, because I know that there are businesses that are really struggling right now. And, I hope anybody who's checking this out is taking some time to support their local shops, because we all need it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's around and what doesn't, and just some, and it's made sense for some companies to be like, I can only do online. That's just what's work. And so it'll be interesting to see. Yeah,
it will be. But you know what? I think we in the maker community are, predisposed to being flexible with these kinds of things. We're used to being creative and having things change on us. And, I think with just a couple ounces of determination and saying, like, I want to be there for my community and I want to offer these things, like, you make it work. And I think there are a lot of, since I don't have a brick and mortar, I think a lot of the really creative things that shops are doing, I'm like, I never would have thought of that. Like, that's a genius idea, and I love to see that creativity and support it as often as I can, for sure.
And I think that's true. That's really interesting that, like, I mean, there are lots of, just in the making community, all the different facets of making any sort of piece, but like how different it is than walking into your department stores and things like that. It's just such each time it's just a creative, different experience, which is always just exciting.
Yeah.
But we've got a couple minutes left, so I just want to give a little quick that there is an awesome giveaway that's going on. It's up on the website, so it's going to be it's a 2-step one. So go ahead and put your entry in for the big giveaway, which is some crochet hooks, a leather journal that Ted made here just on the road, and Vixen. Nuage. Yeah, scan that. And then the step 2 is click on the link that you'll see in that same page as well, and it'll take you over to get a free pattern from Toni. So everybody's going to be able to get that,
which is really generous, Toni.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anytime that I can push Tunisian crochet on people, I will. So have fun with that.
That's the style that's gotten me. So I got to do that sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
And before we sign off, we've got Toni is the
top 5. We just have a minute, but Toni, your top 5 favorite albums, do you have them?
I do have them. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them or try to change my mind, because I'm not going to tell you how long it took me to come up with this list, but much longer than it should have. But these are my top 5. So my number 1 is Beyonce's Lemonade album. Awesome. It's just, it's a whole moment and a mood and a story, beginning to end. I love it. Number 2, which was kind of my wild card, is actually Kanye West 808s and Heartbreaks. So this was one of his, I feel like, more experimental albums, like a lot of interesting synth sounds and like heavy bass and a lot of like auto-tune. And it came out in this time in my life. I think I was like a sophomore in college or maybe a junior. And I don't know. I just took to this album and I love it to this day. It's one of the weirdest things like on my playlist. Awesome. Another album that I was really into in college was Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon. So this was his debut album. Kid Cudi's from, I think, Cleveland. And just there's a lot of emotion and insight into his experience with like mental health and like experiencing night terrors and issues with his family. And like, I connected with him on these things. Number 4 is actually Maroon 5, Songs About Jane. So this is their debut album as well. This one came out, I think, when I was in high school. And I'll be completely honest, like I grew up in like a mostly Black neighborhood, went to a Black high school, so like getting introduced to Maroon 5 in high school, like that was, I don't even know how that happened, but it's one of by far my absolute favorite albums. And I honestly think that exposure brings me to number 5, which is actually John Mayer's Continuum.
Wow.
And that one, I'd probably move that one right behind Lemonade. Like Continuum came out when I was in college as well. And that was when I was in my like, just kind of angsty, feel all my feelings. Like I honestly didn't even date till I was in grad school. So like everything he was talking about, relationships and stuff, I was like, I feel you, John. And I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But yeah, those are my top 5. Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. But
I love it. I love it. That's so awesome, Toni. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
The whole range there.
I love it.
Like, yeah,
I love
It's quite the range for sure. When I was looking at the list myself, I was like, girl, you are all over the place. Like,
It's okay.
but honestly, it made me wish that I would have kept my iPod from like 2006. I have no idea where it is, but I'd really love to see like what all Toni was into like in 2006. She was a bit of a weirdo, but she's cool.
Awesome.
Lastly, people were asking about the sweater that's behind you.
Oh yeah, this one. So this is actually my Sedona sweater. It is all Tunisian crochet, and it was actually made with yarn that was left over from my temperature blanket last year. So all of these colors are in that blanket, and kind of the thickness of the stripes and the order of the stripes was just based on how much yarn I had left over in those colors. So it is a true and honest scrap project.
Blanket
Really cool.
too, man.
That is really cool.
Oh yeah, she's a big one though. She's in the closet. That's like dead middle of winter blanket. Like we're not gonna take that out till about February. So, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we should probably have to wrap it up before we lose everyone. But
Okay.
thank you so much, Toni.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Thanks so much for just really being the highlight of my Thursday night. I think I'm gonna go find a glass of red wine and chillax on the couch.
Yes,
Awesome.
we could talk.
Awesome. Thank you
forever.
for being such an awesome part of this community.
Yes.
Like, and thanks for coming on here with us. It's really
My
awesome.
pleasure.
It's really
Anytime. This was super fun. Thanks, girls.
All right. Thanks so much,
Bye, Toni.
guys.
Great to see you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
See ya.